Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. I, 28 male, was dating Linda, 27 female, and we had a beautiful relationship until she gave birth to Ken, our son, 6 years old. After the birth of our son, Linda left us one night without a goodbye. By then, our son was just 2 years old. I tried to convince Linda to return, to no avail. I later found out she was dating a guy who was into drugs. My parents are very old, so I didn't want to disturb them with caring for my child. My sister, 35 female, had 2 kids aged 8 and 5 by then, but she also turned me down when I asked for her help. Left with no option, I single-handedly raised Ken all by myself to date. As for Linda, I heard she ran mad due to drug abuse and is still undergoing treatment at a psychiatric hospital. As though the hell I went through as a single dad the past 4 years wasn't enough, my son Ken got diagnosed with cancer, specifically osteosarcoma, last year. Osteosarcoma is a pretty invasive type of cancer that spreads very quickly and affects the long bones. Sadly, it affected my son's limb. I must admit that I was partly the cause. When Ken started having leg pains, I just got him some painkillers instead of sending him to do a checkup. I work at a restaurant and, with the festive season approaching, we were quite busy and I had to work overtime. Of course, the stress came with a pay raise. When Ken kept on complaining, I then took time off and sent him to the hospital for a checkup. That was when the doctor told me the devastating news about the condition of my son. He said the cancer had spread through his leg and would affect his entire body, putting his life in danger, unless his leg was amputated. He gave me the papers to sign, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I begged him to use other forms of treatment to save his leg, but he said it was already too late. I signed the papers and cried myself to sleep that night. Only if I had paid more attention to Ken, all this wouldn't have happened. For the first time in many years, I hated myself for having a child with Mary, who just abandoned us for some drug addict. The amputation was carried out the following day. In addition to the cost of his rehabilitation, my lifetime savings were completely drained. During this period, just like in the past when I needed help to care for my son, no family member stepped forward to assist me financially. Now, talking about the present issue at hand. While Ken was still undergoing rehabilitation, I decided to travel abroad and buy Ken an expensive limb with a functional ankle joint. Since he was still a kid, I thought it might help him quickly adjust to his condition as well. Before I left, I wasn't having enough money to even hire a nanny, and I was still wondering how to go about the situation when Mary opted to care for him. Her decision slightly took me by surprise, but I was very happy. It's worth noting that I took a loan before I was able to cover all the expenses. To be honest, I have no secret savings anywhere to repay this loan. However, a friend suggested that I create a GoFundMe account where I could get some donations from the generous public to pay off part of the expenses incurred. I decided to do so after my return abroad, but then someone was a step ahead of me in this. While I was still abroad, Mary created the account using my son's diagnosis card, hospital bills, and other medical reports needed for verification. I asked her why she did so without asking for my consent, and she told me that she was doing it to help me out. I returned from abroad last week. I asked Mary about the account she created and how much had been made so far from the donations, and to my horror, she said she had already used up the money. I got angry and asked her what was so urgent and more important than my son's health. And she sheepishly claimed she used it to pay off a mortgage she had taken on her house. I was speechless. I asked her to refund the money within a week, otherwise I might take legal action against her. She started crying and making a scene, claiming I was too heartless and ungrateful for requesting a refund. So I should just take it as a form of payment for taking care of my son while I was away. Ladies and gentlemen, the money we are talking about here is $150K. And there she is, asking that I let go all in the name of her caring for my son for just a few days. Before I forget, initially I wasn't planning on taking a loan. I went around asking my family members, Mary included, for support. But they all came up with 1,001 reasons why they can't help me. So am I the a-hole in this situation? Expect an update from me on any new turn of events. Update. Thanks for the comments and well wishes. I appreciate it. 4 days ago, I went to Mary to ask her for the money again. She asked me to walk out of her house because my presence was irritating her. I left and recorded a video talking about the entire issue, which I intend to post online. Mary has quite a huge number of followers and she advertises products online for some popular brands. A lot of people know her and have a good impression of her. Hence, posting such a video online would jeopardize her career. I first sent the video to her to understand her stance on the whole issue. Well guys, that did the magic. She texted me immediately begging me not to post it so that she would refund the money. I wanted her to show her sincerity and she instantly sent me half of the funds. At this point, I believe she has no option but to refund the remaining money. By the way, Ken is recovering pretty quickly. Thanks for the support you guys gave Ken and me. You're not the a-hole, Patrick. Your sister is. And I'm tempted to say your parents are a-holes too. I am so sorry about your son's diagnosis. I am really proud of you for being a good parent and a single dad. Linda is an a-hole too for running off and leaving her son motherless. But the biggest a-hole in your story has to be your sister. She's a terrible person and I want you to cut her out of your life and Ken's life. She couldn't support you, but when strangers did, she was more than happy to take all the support they gave you. I've never heard of anyone so greedy and selfish. I'm glad you've made her give you a refund. I hope she gives back everything. I wish you and Ken well and I hope you find more support. Story 2. My fiancée, 28 female, is currently 5 months pregnant and has been both fatigued and nauseous lately. I get why she didn't want to help me look for the dog, but I can't get over the lack of empathy and bordering selfish behavior of this either. My dog, 6-year-old Heeler Corgi Mix, runs off at least once a week. Usually my fiancé will help me find her, but is not without protest. I honestly didn't even know how she was getting out of our fenced yard, so I installed cameras and found that she was scaling the 5-foot fence. I ended up attaching spinners to the top of the fence thinking that would solve the issue, but it didn't. I brought her out today and was playing with her when my phone rang. I was inside just long enough to grab my phone and my dog had gotten out. I immediately went in search of her, thinking she couldn't have gotten far. But I couldn't find her anywhere, so I went back to the house and asked my fiancé, who was curled up on the sofa, to come help me. She immediately said no. She said she was tired of chasing the dog, that she isn't dealing with it anymore and that I should have been out there watching her. I explained to her that I had been watching her and simply stepped away for 2 seconds to grab my phone, just inside the sliding door, and she had escaped. She again said it wasn't a problem and she is not exhausting herself anymore to search for my dog. I won't even say it was unexpected because, as I said, in the past she has always had a problem with helping me search. But she's never said no. She just complained about it. At first I went and searched for myself. After maybe half an hour I came back and asked her again to come help me and she snapped. I said no. I'm so tired of chasing that dog around multiple times a week when I'm already exhausted and throwing up constantly. I panicked and unleashed some yelling, which involved me telling her she was a bitch who lacked empathy and that I was thoroughly disappointed with my decision to be with someone so heartless. It was out of pure fear and panic on my part, and I did apologize later, after I found my dog. But she said, "Go F yourself," and won't talk to me. Am I the a-hole? Everyone is on my side except my sister, who says I'm an effing prick. Because it's not my pregnant fiancé's responsibility to chase around your effing mutt, and said she would have immediately left if her boyfriend ever said what I did to her. You're the a-hole, OP. Your fiancé is pregnant, fatigued and nauseous. Your dog literally runs off once a week. But then you say your fiancé says multiple times a week. That's a problem that you should be addressing. If your dog is escaping this regularly, you might want to consider a long line or similar tool. Your fiancée is pregnant and probably shouldn't be regularly running around when your dog escapes, when she's experiencing what I'm sure is horrible fatigue and nausea. Seriously, reread the way you spoke to your pregnant fiancée because it's disgusting. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. She is sick and tired because she is growing your child. And the fact that you don't properly supervise your dog and it escapes weekly, then expect her to help you when she doesn't feel well anyhow, shows that not only are you an irresponsible pet owner, but also that you're entitled and you lack empathy for her. Screaming at her and calling her names is unacceptable and inexcusable. She should leave. You're the a-hole. You know your dog is an unruly a-hole who does this weekly, and your girlfriend is exhausted and physically unwell. She can't push off her pregnancy illnesses to you to manage when she's tired or stressed. You did act irresponsibly with the dog. A dog who can escape that easily needs to be tethered and 100% supervised, not 98%. You should really get your anger checked because your attitude is awful and your reaction is a huge red flag. Get a GPS collar and don't leave your dog alone. Also question what shitty a-holes agree with you because they're a bunch of flea-infested filth too, thinking yelling at a sick pregnant woman is okay. You're the a-hole. You are the one who lacks empathy. She feels sick and you berate her to find a dog that you lost. Then when she doesn't follow your command, you start verbally assaulting her. Check yourself, and no one is buying the "I only called her a bitch because I was scared" bullshit either. No, you're just an a-hole when you don't get your way. You know, instead of screaming at her, you could have been out looking for your dog. I agree with other commenters too. You're also an irresponsible dog owner. Do better in that department or else the dog could one day get seriously hurt. If you can't do better, find someone who can and give her up. Story 3. My girlfriend Anne, 25 female, and I, 25 male, have been dating for the past 5 years, since college. After graduation, we were semi-long distance, living close enough that we alternately visited almost every weekend. In 2018, Anne got a job in my city and we found a place and moved in together. Now's a good time to mention the security cameras in our house. Break-ins are unfortunately common where we live. We thus got some motion-activated cameras, one of which has a view of our kitchen to monitor the back door. The cameras only record when there's motion so they can retain footage for a very long time. Anne, of course, knows this. About a year ago, Anne started complaining I wasn't contributing equally to chores. I've been obsessive about chores my whole life. Growing up, not doing the dishes meant no video games for a week. When I lived with roommates, I was always the chore Nazi, making damn sure we all stuck to our chore wheel. Anne is just as fastidious about chores, so we just naturally alternated who did what. I had been brushing her remarks off, but over the last few months they've become much more aggressive. Example, I was vacuuming and Anne said, "Look at you finally cleaning up around here." I replied that we alternated vacuuming, to which she retorted, "No, you've vacuumed maybe twice since I moved in." Exchanges like this have been happening so frequently that I began to doubt my own recollection. Am I not as clean as I thought? Finally, she exploded at me last week. She said that having to stay home constantly over the past weeks exposed how little I do around the house, and that she didn't move in just to be my maid. Questioning my own sanity, I spent a few hours going through the entire 1.5-year archive of security camera footage. I tallied the exact number of times the kitchen cam caught each of us doing dishes. Our cleaning supplies, vacuum, mop, etc. are in the kitchen pantry, so I also tallied up how many times we grabbed cleaning stuff. To my vindication, the tally showed that we indeed split chores equally. She vacuumed and mopped 5 more times than I did. I did dishes 20 more times than she did. Given that we vacuum, mop at least once a week and do dishes at least every day, these are insignificant differences over the 1.5 years we've lived together. When I confronted Anne, she shrugged off her behavior as remembering things differently, but the real sin here was what I did, which she called an unforgivable violation of her privacy, akin to abusive stalking. She has broken up with me and is trying to move out, although obviously this is difficult due to current circumstances. I'm totally heartbroken. Anne was the love of my life, and I can't believe she destroyed our relationship like this. To make matters worse, she told many of our friends, who are mostly siding with her. They've been texting me that what I did was creepy, abusive, controlling, invasive, etc. I'm at a loss. I'm beginning to think I'm the one who's off base here. Edit. Some people thought I vacuumed 5 times more and she did dishes 20 times more. I clarified the wording that it was literally 5 more times, 20 more times total over 1.5 years. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. If Anne wasn't aware the cameras were there, sure, I could see her having a point. But if you know you're being recorded, you know the person you're living with has access to these recordings. While it may be out of the ordinary, it's certainly not a-holish behavior for your partner to actually go over said recordings. My guess is this relationship was on the rocks and this is all Anne needed to justify leaving. You couldn't win with her. This isn't a case of her being upset with you because you've done something wrong. This is her finding something wrong because she's upset with you. Look into Schechter-Singer theory. There's nothing wrong with what you did. You nailed it. She was gaslighting you. You looked at the facts. When my ex started doing this to me, it was because she had cheated on me and was having feelings for other people, and it was easier for her to blame me than to accept responsibility for her own feelings and actions, not the a-hole. OP, honestly, it was never about the chores. I'm sorry to say it, but it reads to me like she was already feeling done in the relationship, and that's why she was getting mad about the chores. You know, when you're mad at someone, everything they do annoys you. Her perspective of dissatisfaction made her see you in a light that was untrue. And looking at the cameras was not wrong, not the a-hole. She was looking for a reason to get out, and she just jumped on that one. Sorry to hear about all of this. I hope you find someone who appreciates what a great partner you are.